Kia ora, good evening. Welcome to the Guerin Report here on a Monday night where we have the boss in the studio. Matt Ballesty is the boss of New Zealand Thoroughbred Racing, the chief executive. He promised us 6 months ago he would come back and explain to us what's going on in the industry. It's much needed. There's a time of change in New Zealand Thoroughbred Racing. We have lots of questions. Matt, welcome back. I'm going to look for some answers for those tonight. Firstly, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks, Mick. Thanks for having me.
How's the last 6 months been? At a pretty crazy time, at a time of a lot of change in New Zealand Thoroughbred Racing.
Look, thanks for having me. It's great to have this opportunity. I know we spoke at Champions Day. I think at that stage I was, very fresh out of the blocks. And wasn't too sure what I'd stepped into, to be honest. And it's been a really busy 6 months, but a really rewarding 6 months as well. So some really good things going on, and pleased to talk about it today.
Okay, put very simply, how is NZTR doing?
We're doing well. I, coming into the role, was really impressed with the calibre of people, the attitude mostly, really positive, passionate, a good team of people there. Remembering they've gone from a huge relocation from Wellington only, south of 12 months ago. And that's a big period of time where people are unsettled, their own livelihoods, what they're doing. And the way that they've set out the office in Cambridge, the structure of the team, the passion's excellent. My view is that we've focused really a lot on what capability we need. And I've made some changes in regards to that only in recent months.
Okay, let's talk about that. You need skilled operators. Is it hard for someone like yourself who is from outside the racing game to attract international class operators to the racing industry?
Yeah, but it's something I'm really familiar with. So I've worked in New Zealand on and off for about 12 years. My last stint was 10 years and worked in a corporate environment. Very labour-intensive environment, so attracting staff and keeping good staff is difficult, especially in those senior roles, especially for what we pay here in New Zealand. It's a very competitive landscape. If you bring Australia into it, the breadth and depth of experience over there is significant, and here it's really good as well. So, but I find here our racing knowledge is really strong, which is great, but they haven't had that commercial exposure. So most people have come up through the racing industry. They're very passionate. Their attitude's fantastic. Their knowledge is great. But as far as, then taking that and turning it more into a professional sort of outlook, we throw in words like strategy and other things. We need more resource and focus there. So I've had some people in the team who have done a fantastic job under the circumstances. And this is not an exercise of getting rid of people. It's actually adding people to provide strength, resources, and get more things done in a timely manner.
You raise a really interesting question, and something I've battled with a lot over the last 20 or 30 years. Are you better off having a racing knowledgeable person and trying to upskill them on commercials and strategies and planning, or having smart, strategic, commercial people who are successful business people and trying to upskill them on racing?
I think it's both. I have the advantage of coming from a background which was similar to the racing industry. So it wasn't the racing industry, but it was a New South Wales club industry. A lot of history, a lot of personal skin in the game, a lot of personalities. They were non-for-profit essentially, so it was more about the community and the football teams and so on. But then I've had that commercial side of things where I've worked for publicly listed companies. So I'm, I think, unique in the sense that I have a bit of grassroots mixed with that corporate side of things. So whilst I'm learning the racing industry, I'm learning very quickly, and a product's a product in a lot of ways, especially when people are involved. And I believe that you can learn it pretty quickly. What we need to do is we need to have a number of people in key roles who have that ability for the commercial and strategic aspect, but they're supported by people who are really strong with New Zealand racing. And I say New Zealand racing because New Zealand racing is unique. We have our own nuances here that we don't have in other places. Australia is very different again with all the different states. So having really strong people who know racing, coupled with people who can put the professionalism and form around a business to make it succeed and be sustainable, is where we need to get to. And my board is, I would consider it an exceptional board. Everyone has an opinion, and people talk about boards and say, oh, they've got vested interests or this or that. I can assure you in the boardroom, we have people who are very, very knowledgeable about racing, who will help steering me along the way. And they're putting aside any interests they have personally or their business has and making sure, what are we doing for the betterment of New Zealand racing? So it's a great environment to be in.
Matt, we've got some huge questions. I want to go down the country to ask you about those. And you seem to speak in plain English, which is really good, because I find a lot of our viewers don't like gobbledygook corporate language.
Yep.
Avondale, where do we stand? What happens next?
So I've been personally involved in Avondale for the last 8 weeks. Prior to that, we had a really good team focused on Avondale and working with their committee over 18 months, and a good set of skills from NZTR. I was very conscious of not coming in and spoiling the momentum that they had made, but 8 weeks ago I stepped in as well to make sure that I wasn't seen as being somebody hands-off. I want to be a CEO who's hands-on and working with people and understand what's going on. I met with their committee. I was really impressed. They're good people. There's some really good people there, some really passionate people who want the best for the industry. But they have struggled to try and find a point where they're happy to agree with us to have the land exchanged over to NZTR, and what legacy they can leave to the Avondale Jockey Club. Now, it's one of those things where we totally appreciate and respect that this club has been around for a long time and has a history. And like all clubs or businesses, they probably had decisions and points in time where they could have done some things, and they would be the first to say maybe they should have done that and they didn't. So we find ourselves in this predicament where Avondale no longer is a venue we see racing continuing at. We don't believe there's amalgamation opportunities with other clubs. I think there's a general consensus around the committee that is where we're heading. And there are some who still are very attached to the legacy and other options. So I think it's in the best state it's possibly been in. And I know this has been going on for years. You talk to people.
So what does that state mean? Is it going to be sold? It seems simple to me, Matt. We sell Avondale at some stage. We give the majority of the money to the betterment of the industry, and we give the Avondale Jockey Club, in whatever form it exists afterwards, some money to continue racing at Ellerslie or Pukekohe. Isn't it just that simple?
It is that simple, and that's really what's laid out. The issue is that we have 3 options, really. One is we sit down and we amicably work out a settlement together. We say this is what we've agreed to, so it might be this is how much land's going to be there, this is how much money the club will get to retain for their club services and their race days. That's the first one, and that is the ideal one. We sit down and we go, you know what, everyone agrees this is for the betterment of the industry. They realise that we're not racing there anymore. They realise the value that it has for the industry. Number 2 is that we then would serve them with a Surplus Venues Act, and that is complicated. Whilst it's a great tool that was introduced to allow us some opportunities to engage with clubs and start to work through things, there's a huge list of requirements that you have to meet. And if you can't agree on things, then you go into mediation. I mean, it's one of those things that reflects, let's just pay lawyers lots of money.
We just don't want to do that.
We just don't want to do that. And we're not an industry, I think we need to do that.
Isn't there the third option that the minister just gets involved and just gets the big hammer out and knocks him on the head?
Well, the third option is, yes, it goes to the minister. We got to try and do everything we can to make sure that it shouldn't be up to the minister to have to try and figure this out. But, yeah, that is the third option.
Doesn't he think we're drongos if we can't fix this stuff? If we can't fix this stuff, which seems bloody simple, don't we look like a bunch of morons?
Yeah, I think, what I've certainly picked up on, and I get that benefit of saying, look, I'm new, right, so it wasn't me, but I certainly pick up on the trend that everyone says this has been going on for way too long and it's ridiculous. I've voiced that opinion in different forums that we really want to get this right. We've got a point in time to make a decision here, Avondale, and this is one where you can make the right decision for us as an industry and for you to leave your legacy, which is that you help you help firm up the sustainability of the New Zealand racing industry. What a legacy to leave. So I'm confident we'll get there, but we do have those other options available to us. I think the Minister whilst he can't engage on these things, the feeling I get is he's looking for action, and it's well past the due-by date.
Okay, if there is a sum of money, which we would think would be north of $100 million potentially, who decides how that money is spent for the industry? Because just moving further down State Highway 1, we get to the potential for a Waikato greenfields, and those two things seem to tie together very nicely.
Well, this is the exciting thing, is that we actually have some really great projects across the country, and I know we're going to work our way down, but the Waikato is a great example. This is where our horse population is, and this is where we want to see it grow. So we need to have a state-of-the-art greenfield site down there.
So NZTR is fully supportive of that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So can money, and I'm not saying this has to happen, but if there is excess money from Avondale, which we expect, can some of that be used to help or even potentially loan to Waikato to make this possible?
Absolutely, absolutely. What our board is focused on is to, and we'll talk about Project Stamina, I'm sure, is to have a master plan for the country that says this is what we're going after. And one of those is the Waikato Greenfields, is that there's a block of land that ticks all the boxes that we're after. It creates space for future growth and development if we want to do that in the way of the parcel of land. We're looking at it from a perspective that you can just build a race course, but that's not going to cut the mustard. We have to look commercially at what can we do with joint ventures or different things to yield a better return and diversify the incomes from a field. Put simply, that is, let's look just beyond just a race course. What else can we do that will have benefits across the country with? So these things cost money. So with the Avondale, realisation of the Avondale property, with funds that we're putting into our investment committee, into our investment fund now that's yielding a return greater than what we had in term deposits, we are trying to build a bank here to make sure that good ideas get funded, that good ideas get signed off, that good ideas eventuate. Because there's been a lot of talk about these things, and granted, not always a lot of money, but that's our job, because if we don't get it happening, the industry doesn't look as bright as it should be.
You raise a really interesting question, and that is Project Stamina, which is the project to have a concerted plan for racetracks and infrastructure over the entire country, and you would like to have at least a blueprint of that, maybe early in 2026. Yep. What happens if Project Stamina has an idea for Waikato Greenfields or other things, and said clubs don't agree with that plan?
Yeah. So the way I would answer that, Mick, is that we're not reinventing the wheel with Project Stamina. There are projects are already well and truly underway. Like this cup in front of me has a glass of water. If you looked at that and said that's the Waikato Greenfields, it's already full or close to full. So we're not saying with Project Stamina to anybody we engage to do that work for us, hey, come up with a new idea or change this. We're going to be saying that these are the things already happening. So put those into the plan, and then also have a look at the parts that we haven't got a plan for. So where are we going to be training in the CD? Because everyone's having a go at it and losing money. Where are we going to consolidate these and say that's where we want to see training happen? This is where we want to see jump outs happen. At the moment, it's sort of spread out everywhere. So there are components that are already well and truly underway that are, already glass half full or glass full. We're not looking to tip all the water out and start again. We're really starting to say, let's just get this organised. And if we were starting from scratch, this would be a project that would take some time. And you can see with the aggressive timelines of trying to have something early next year that says this is the draft plan that our boards can consider, it reflects the fact that a lot of work's already been done. So whilst I talk about in Stamina a master consultant, what we're really doing is talking to all those who are already been engaged. We've already paid for their reports. They've already done the work. Let's get all that work into one common area and let's consider it, put it into a coordinated approach and say that's our master plan. Because when I started, the board were asking questions around, we need a master plan, we should have this, and we've got pockets of work in isolation. And I said, well, that's what Project Stamina, I'll need to get that going. I spoke to Brad Steele, spoke to Nick Roberts, spoke to Jason Fleming. Stamina is the name of the horse that the Mongolians gifted the Honourable Winston Peters. And so that was a tip of the hat to say, we get it. We know we want to see action. We know that we're not, what was the word you used, drongos. We're getting it done, right? So we're going to get a plan together and we're going to go after it.
Brings us to Hastings. A lot of rumours about Hastings. You met with the members there recently. It sounds like there is a plan. Can you outline the 5-year plan in that region for us? And we're not holding you to this as guaranteed. We realise the world changes and investment is needed and all these things are difficult to put together. But what do you want to happen there, Matt?
So Hastings has an amazing brand and history. There's just no doubt in that. And from a wagering and racing perspective, that's really important. However, Hastings, like a lot of our tracks, is in need for investment. The track itself is old and needs to be refurbished, pulled up and redone. But then you look at the grandstands, you look at the water intake, you look at a whole bunch of things happening in and around, even from a council perspective with Hastings. The bill starts to add up to do a full change there. The second part is when you are doing that, as we saw with Ellerslie, you can be out of action for a number of years. So if we look at that, the CD, apart from Awapuni, which has its own problems, and Trentham with its location and other challenges, which is similar to the boat that Hastings is in, it makes for a very bleak future. So what we've decided is to recamber the Hastings track. I'm not going to try and be a turf expert here, but I tell you I've learned a lot about grass over the last 6 months. But the recamber will provide Hastings with a solution that gets us back to racing. The target is spring 2026, which is pretty aggressive, but we've lined it right up to the week, to the sunshine, to this new period we're coming into where we get the grass growth going. We've had a lot of expertise and resource involved in it, some fresh eyes and new eyes that we'll talk about with the resource from Melbourne Racing that we're using. And we believe, we're very clear that we'll get that racing back by 2026 spring, unless something goes wrong.
So we're racing at Hastings this time next year.
Yeah.
What does it look like in 5 years? Because I know there is a greenfields project planned potentially for that region, and I believe potentially at Flaxmere. Would that mean we race at Hastings for 5 years, that venue eventually gets shut down because I think it's close enough to town to be worth a fair bit of money, and we start talking greenfields at Flaxmere? Is that the big plan?
Exactly all that. So we were lucky enough to have some discussions with a developer some months ago, probably 5-6 months ago, and they put forward a pretty compelling sort of option for us. And notwithstanding, there's been a team looking at this area well before my tenure. And what's been really exciting is that this has gone from a meeting and a discussion to a lot of consultation, due diligence on each other's parties, a lot of planning and design, a lot of conversations with government, a lot of conversations with local and regional council. And we now are in a position to really be looking at the realisation of a brand new greenfield site next to Flaxmere, as you mentioned. It's on the outskirts. You don't have to go through Flaxmere to get to it. It's actually really easily accessible. So
how do you fund that, Matt? So we're talking, you take some of the money of a presumed development of the current Hastings track 5 or 6 years down the line. Are the government on board with this, considering how much money racing puts into the economy?
Yeah, they identify, especially the regional district boards down there. They realise how important racing is to that region. We know as a nation how important it is to the region because not only is the location and it keeps the CD relevant, but the climate in Hawke's Bay is just, it's special, it's unique. So having a race course down there will give us some certainty, like Hastings has provided for many years, that we've got a really good surface to have racing. The government, and I can't speak on behalf of the government obviously, but we have engaged and presented in Wellington on our ideas of what we'd like to do, and it's been really well received. It's now just down to a numbers game, and we talked about Avondale, like if we had, circa, as you mentioned, north of $100 million in the bank, it should be more, but then we would be able to look at how we allocate that funding to projects like this. However, we're not in that position right now, so we have asked for some funding, and we believe that it's a very appealing proposition to look at close to $1 billion of private investment in that region for a very small amount of money from the government to hold us over, which would get paid back to them through our funds in years to come, the next 20 years. We see it as a really very appealing prospect for the region, for housing, for our sport. So we're really excited about it, and we are right down to the very pointy end on that. and I wish to talk to the members of Hastings who ultimately have to vote on this decision for it to happen, and we also need to know that we've got government funding for it to proceed.
Awapuni is, again, strategically very important. A lot of good horses are trained there. A lot of people love racing in that region. It's been a bit of a stuff-up, the return to racing there. Is there light at the end of that tunnel? Are we going to be okay there?
Yeah, I truly think we will be. And I think, acknowledging the stuff-up really, I can say this again coming in new, is that it just appeared that the amount of money we were going to spend on that was never going to be sufficient. So what's been spent is what can we do with the money we have? And that was just the position racing was in at the time. A lot of work has gone into it. A lot of money has been spent on it again, sensible money to make sure we get the best possible outcome. You'll see from the amount of times that we've now postponed racing there, we are not rushing in and doing what we've been accused of doing before, which is, let's hope it's going to be all right. We're not doing that. We have given it every opportunity to present itself as a track that we can have confidence in. We're not there yet. And we're not there yet, mainly because it's just the timing of the year. There's been no sun. It's, as we know in that region, it's terrible, rain and mud, et cetera, and over recent weeks when we've had some sun, we see that grass actually growing back in. Our resource that we have focused on that and the team of RTAs, et cetera, looking at it, that's the regional track managers, are very confident that we're heading in the right direction. But we will be patient and we'll wait until it's absolutely where it needs to be before we race on it.
Raises a very big question. Racing in the capital. Trentham, the grandstand, we know, is not apparently as earthquake compliant as it should be. There is issues there heading forward. Not a lot of people go to Trentham to watch racing apart from a couple of days a year. Is it going to be surplus to needs if you're building a greenfields project at Flaxmere? Is there a future for racing at Trentham?
We're working really closely with Race at the moment because they've got a number of financial considerations. Awapuni, they haven't been able to race. Trentham, as you mentioned, has a number of challenges. So the grandstand does need to come down. It's earthquake-proof for a number of years yet, but it still would require a huge amount of investment. And the only way we can extend the use of the stand is to show plans of what we intend to do, but we don't intend on spending that sort of money. We're talking tens of millions it could be to actually upgrade and put that stand back to where it needs to be. That's just not sensible. It's not fiscally responsible. So it does really bring into the conversation, if we do have a greenfield site in the CD and we do have Awapuni back to its best, how do we make sure that clubs are profitable? And clubs aren't profitable by spreading their resources across multiple locations. It just doesn't work from a forecast financial perspective. It's spreading your resources way too thin and you're not getting the return that you really want. So, look, as I said, we're in conversations with Race. We've put some support in there to give them the best shot of getting their financials into a position that they should be. But as I've mentioned to them, this is a period of pain and it is what it is, and we're not going to jeopardise the industry and what's best for the industry by trying to have best endeavours to race on a surface that we're not happy with or spend money that we think isn't going to lead to long-term sustainability.
Matt, we could talk a lot more, and I appreciate your candour this evening about the future of tracks. A lot of things are going to happen in the future, but right now, you guys are putting regional track managers in play. There's more support. You're getting people like Liam O'Keefe involved from Australia. Are we going to be better heading forward? Because I would like to say that people are annoyed by cancellations. That is an understatement. They are point blank pissed off to take their horses to the races, to have them in training for months and spend all that money and have meetings called off. Are we going to see less of that? How confident are you? Because people were sick of it.
Yeah, my confidence is we just have to be, right? I am not the sort of person, nor will those in my management team be the sort of people who want to turn up to work every Monday and go, oh, great, that happened. Let's just go through it again next weekend. We are going to be about what do we need to do and what do we need to resource to make this possible. So as an example, and I'll give credit to a number of the organisations, be it the trainers, jockeys, clubs, etc., called for a hui, for a meeting with us. We were happy for them to take the initiative and lead it, albeit I wanted to lead it as well. And we had some really productive conversations around the table. A lot of frustration, a few raised voices at times, but we identified that we really do need to get this right. I approached Victorian Racing with Liam O'Keefe. He's a great guy, but he's also very knowledgeable. And he's not a guy who comes over the ditch and says, I know everything. He's not that sort of person, because that sort of person is not what we want. What we want is somebody who can work really closely with the local expertise, provide input. This is what we've learnt in other jurisdictions. This is what you could consider here. You know, we've got better disciplines around the use of going sticks and different sort of tools to give us some data. So we're building a database of what's happening with the tracks, what are things to look out for. He's imparting some of his knowledge, but also learning some stuff about New Zealand and how the surfaces work. An example is, you know, Gary Fossick, who's down there in Hastings, has been there forever, used to look after the tracks for 30 years. We've reached out to Gary. Do you want to have a walk around the track and give us your input? So anyone who knows something about it is being involved, and it's something that probably hasn't been done up until now. We've formally engaged Liam through a contract so that he is NZTR's consultant working with our teams to give us more certainty and focus on what we need to do to get these tracks into a better state. And you would have seen with Awapuni, he's been heavily involved in that. He's even fronted it from a social media perspective. And you know, I believe we've got really good focus and energy around what we need to do.
Matt, there's some huge questions heading forward around turnover and some of the things we do at the moment that do work and some that don't work, and how we're going to head forward as an industry. And we're going to welcome you back over the summer so we can keep our viewers and our participants involved. But the last question for right now, what's the number one priority for NZTR?
Well, I'm not going to give you one, but I'll give you three.
Okay.
Tracks and consistency, reliability for that planning that you spoke about. Number two is we need to achieve the minimum guarantee. We need to work very closely with Entain and TAB and anyone who's involved in making that needle move. And so I'm really committed to that. And then thirdly is our foal crop. Our foal crop's declining. We talk about everything we've spoken about today, but without horses, we don't have an industry. So that's a real problem. And what comes with increased foal crop is certainty. What are your plans? What are we doing? Do I want to stay here? Do I want to breed here? You know, we've had some amazing breeding over the years and known for our horses, and we need to get a bit of that back. And thank you to all those who do invest their money and time and efforts in the industry, because without them we wouldn't be where we are today, but we need to focus on those three things.
Matt, great to have you here, and I appreciate the plain speak for the people at home who don't have university degrees and don't get to use all that other strategic stuff language. We look forward to welcoming you back over the summer. Good luck. To everybody watching at home, that's the Guerin Report, an update on your industry right from the top of New Zealand thoroughbred racing. We look forward to being back with you next Monday at 8 p.m.